আমাদের পত্রিকা, আমাদের দেশবন্ধু বিদ্যাপীঠ হাই স্কুলের বার্ষিক পত্রিকা ম্যাগাজিন, অ্যানুয়াল ম্যাগাজিনে দিশারিতে আমার যে দুটি ইংরাজি আর্টিকেল প্রকাশিত হয়েছে সে দুটি আমি এখন পড়ে শোনাচ্ছি। প্রথম লেখাটি, আই অ্যাম অ্যান ইন্ডিয়ান, ডক্টর মানস চট্টোপাধ্যায়, হেডমাস্টার, দেশবন্ধু বিদ্যাপীঠ হাই স্কুল, নারিকেলডাঙ্গা, কলকাতা। I am an Indian, a proud Indian. I am a global man, but more importantly, I am an integral component of this infinite universe that has hardly any beginning or any end. I am an Indian, but I must feel proud of being known to everybody as a man to whom the first and last priority of life rests on the core concept that has been epitomized in Tagore's Religion of Man. If my mother nation slaughters people on the name of caste, community, religion, language, and such trivial things that hardly justify our identity, then I must say I am not an Indian. But our nation is definitely that nation that believes in the thoughts of the Vedas, Buddhas, the Holy Bible, the Holy Quran, and the Holy Gita. So my concept of being considered as a global man definitely coincides with my concept of being considered as an Indian. Indeed, I am an Indian. Actually, these outward differences between man and man don't have any justification, even if we try to evaluate the entire scheme scientifically, spiritually, or through any parameter we do have in our knowledge. Can anybody in this entire universe prove and justify these man-made differences? Actually, these are the products of the bureaucratic system that wants to maintain its dominance on the underprivileged proletariat community through this peace section and clergy community. If we have any difference at all that can be justified, to my mind, is that we are either rich or poor financially. Has the Almighty ever, anywhere, given the slightest hint that only the clergy community are entitled to worship Him? All these idiotic dogmas are absolutely man-made and are meant to serve the vested interests of the so-called elite sections of the society. And whom do we call elites in our society? Well, we have hundreds of ready-made such parameters in our prevailing system to discuss the matter. But to my mind, the only thing that should be the decisive one about fixing up the problem is whether or not we do have inner sanctity in our hearts. The outward has no meaning if it is not linked to the inward. If we delve deep into the essence of our Indian culture and ethos, we may clearly detect that we all do exist in this earth, nay, in this infinite universe, as different manifestations of the same divine entity that has no clear beginning and end, and yet that happens to be the ultimate reality beyond all other surface level realities. But this hypothesis, though apparently looks a bit paradoxical and confusing, seems to be solidly grounded logically and scientifically in that the entire atomic structure, when dissolved into further tinier particles, unveils to us the prime secret of this endless infinite universe beyond Akashaganga, and so much and so on. The secret is that light particle flows on in this universe in a mysterious way beyond any tangible scientific analysis, and yet it always eludes any delicate attempt to explore its rhythm, remaining as an ever elusive mystery beyond all mysteries, and thereby obliquely implying the presence of that, the omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient Almighty, who can be best defined as the purest, sublime expression of our conscience that always connects it with Mother Nature and with everything bad and good, animate and inanimate, pure and apparently impure, in that all apparent impurities do have their intrinsic elements of purities, as we all are connected to the one and indivisible Almighty. So when I say I am an Indian, I do definitely assert my link to the global fraternity, in that my mother nation never rejects foreign culture. She only takes the best out of others and continuously impoverishes herself by fusing her age-old values with the best of others, showing to the global fraternity her crystallized light of humanity that can protect, promote, and preserve this turbulent, war-torn, epidemic-torn, postmodern global society. I dream myself to be a man the way Tagore, the Nobel laureate, defined it. Yeah, I belong to the religion of man. Again, I am Hindu in an Indian sense, in a sense that has nothing to contradict with the core concepts of other religions, say Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, Sikhs, etc. So what does it mean to be Indian? The answer is direct and straightforward. That is to regard and accept others with their apparent differences, in that we all do have the same goal. That is to say, to envision the better and purer global fraternity, to take up all of us further ahead of closer to the realms of perfection, a concept that Swami Vivekananda defined through his ideas about education. Education is the manifestation of perfection already in man. The Vedas, the Upanishad, the Manu Samhitas, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the Holy Gita, in fact all these books and scriptures do focus on the underlying unity of our global culture amidst the outward diversities and complexities. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru's the all-time great classic, Discovery of India, reveals this simple truth. That is to say, if you study India, you can easily capture the simple thing that our great nation is always involved in an ever-continuing process to expand, modify, and more importantly, to enhance and enrich her culture by way of constant collaboration and exchanges with the foreign nations, the Western community, and the others. Tagore epitomized this documentation and contestation in his great poem Bharat Tirtho, Dibe ar nibe, milabe milibe, jabe na fire, ei bharoter mahamanober সাগর তীরে. The same truth was clarified unambiguously and forcefully by Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan. Yes, he unfolded and unfilled the dynamism and inherent potential of Indian culture by explaining the different tenets of the Vedantic culture that does have the core ingredients of all religions across the world. And Dr. Radhakrishnan made it clear that the strengths of Indian culture lie in its multifacetedness, plurality, and secularism, that a firm faith in the concept of global fraternity, definitely not at the cost of our own integral essence and sovereignty. So, I am an Indian who believes in non-violence, not in cowardice. When China is constantly attacking us and capturing our own sovereign territories one after the other, my concept of being an Indian approves me of taking a direct war on China and thrashing them with a tough lesson on their own coin. Yeah, I do feel proud of my nation when my mother nation stretches forward her helping hands to our weaker and underprivileged neighboring nations. Nations in times of epidemic like COVID-19, etc. In similar way, I do feel ashamed of being an Indian when my nation betrays cowardice ahead of draconic Chinese aggression. In similar way, I do feel proud of being an Indian when my nation teaches Pakistan a tough lesson in context of their militant vulgar attacks on our gallant soldiers at Pulwama. Actually, India is a land of Tagores and Gandhis, of Vivekanandas and Nazrul Islams, of Sukanta Bhattacharya's and Sarojini Naidus, of Netaji Subhas and Bhagat Singh, of Tilaks and Lala Lajpat Rai's, of Pandit Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagars and Khudiram Bose's, of Matangini Hajras and Master Surya Sen's, of Binoy Badal Dinesh, of Rishi Aurobindo Ghosh, of Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, of Raja Ram Mohan Rai and APJ Abdul Kalam, of Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, the frontier Gandhi, of Mrs. Indira Gandhi, the premier of a strongly emerging Indian nation, of Sharad Chandra Chattopadhyay and Boregole Mani Khan, of Lataji, Ashaji and Shonda Mukhopadhyay, of Muhammad Rafi and Hemanta Mukhopadhyay, of Shaira Banu, of Kanon Devi and Madhubala, of Rajinikanth and Satyajit Ray, of Minal Sen and Ritik Gadot, of Sakil Madhubani and Nausar, of Soumitra Chatterjee and Suchitra Sen, of Raj Kumar, Om Puri and Omresh Puri, and so much and so on. India is the land of Dhyan Chand and Kapil Dev, of Sani Gavaskar and Sachin Tendulkar, of Syed Kirmani and Vishwanathan Anand, of K.S. Sika, of P.V. Sindhu, of maiden historic Thomas Cup winning men's badminton team comprising of K.S. Srikanth, Laxma Sen, M.S. Pranoy, S. Reddy and Chirag, etc., of Mansoor Ali Khan Pataudi and Saurabh Ganguly, of Ravi Shastri and Virat Kohli, of M.S. Dhoni and Mohammad Sami, and so much and so on, of Manna De and Mukesh, and so much and so on. But the way I would like to define myself as an Indian poetically is something that will revolve around that particular idea that must address synchronization of the dynamically progressive, uncompromising vigor and vitality of the death-conquering freedom fighter Netaji Subhash Bose and his guru, his guide Deshabandhu Chittaranjan Das, with all their flawless devotion to the cause of the mother nation and the non-violent ideals of our great father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, along with Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore's universal ideas of global fraternity to the cause of the mother nation. I would also like to feel proud of being a proud Indian that has in its culture the mellifluous musicality of the evergreen romantic poet Jivanananda Das, the composer of all-time great classic Ruposhi Bangla, wherein we detect the echo of John Keats's poetry. I would also like to feel elated to be that kind of an Indian that is part of its flamboyant, robust poetic touch in Shukanta Bhattacharya and Kazi Nazrul Islam. I would also like to consider myself a proud Indian with Tagore's step and Sharad Chandra Chattopadhyay's mellowing penetration, enriching not simply the Indian literary culture but also the overall global hierarchy. How many such instances can I recall within these limited areas? For example, Vibhuti Bhushan Bandyopadhyay, the composer of all-time great classic Pather Panchali; Manik Bandyopadhyay, the composer of another great classic Putul Nache Ritikotha; Dijendralal Rai, with his terribly mellowing compositions in realms of poetry and songs, may also be mentioned as instances of our nation's great achievements. So, to conclude, I must say emphatically and proudly that I am an Indian that believes in global fraternity, that believes in universal humanity. I repeat, that has nothing to do with man-made caste prejudices, man-made superstitions, devoid of progressive values and scientific observations. Yeah, I am a proud Indian who feels proud of saluting my nation's sacred tricolor that keeps flattering eye with a vision to touch the infinity and the ever-expanding endless eternity. ভারতবর্ষ স্বপ্নের এক নাম, ভারতবর্ষ মানবতার এক নাম, আমরা রয়েছি সেই স্বপ্নের দেশে। India is the land of dream. India is the land of humanity. We are here in that land of dream. বলো 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 সবে, ভারত আবার জগত সবাই শ্রেষ্ঠ আসন লবে, ধর্মে মহান হবে, কর্মে মহান হবে, নবদিন মনে উদিবে আবার পুরাতন এ পুরবে। বলো 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 সবে, ভারত আবার জগত সবাই শ্রেষ্ঠ আসন লবে। Say all the valiant citizens of India will again be the champion in realms of religion, in realms of our works, in realms of our minds, in realms of our humanity, and realms of everything concerned with this global humanity. If anybody senses any real urgency to ask me about my ultimate identity, I repeat, if anybody senses any real urgency at all to ask me about my ultimate identity, I must say unambiguously, and that too without any prejudice, that I happen to be the son of the soil, soaked with the sweat of the crowds of the peasantries and the working class communities. I am the son of the universal mother nature that doesn't narrow our identities into Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Sikhs, Yahudis, or into Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Shudras, etc. I am the son of this global universe that treats us alike, offering us the same light, the same water, the same air, the same blessings. And that's why Mother Nature delicately points out that the color of all our blood is red, be he a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian or a Buddhist, or be he a Brahmin or a Shudra. Actually, we all belong to the same Almighty, whom we call by different names, such as Krishna, Kabir, Hazrat, Christ, Buddha, Nanak, etc., etc. So, I am an Indian, definitely a proud Indian, who has strong faith and conviction in the age-old, historically valid traditional Indian culture that identifies her on the same wavelength as that of the global fraternity, deeply rooted in the concept of universally acknowledged global man. To conclude, finally, I must precisely and categorically mention that I happen to be an Indian, a proud, valiant Indian, but definitely not at the cost of my identity as a global man to whom the first and the last concern is human consciousness and human values that get replicated and resonated everywhere, in the sky, in the fruits and flowers, in the rivers and oceans, in the mountains and volcanoes, and even within the meanest of creatures. That's all.